Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, this is the final session of Lut alayhi salam and what happened with those people. And before I go into this, again, because this is a 4-part series, in every single part of the series I've said that we are only discussing this from the viewpoint of the Muslims, and particularly the traditional Muslims, those who subscribe to the Sahaba view, radiyallahu anhum ajma'een. So this is Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and those who are particularly following the overview and the consensus of the Sahaba in this matter. And this, anyone outside of this realm of those who are lesbians or gays or bisexuals or transsexuals, whatever they are, we're not making mockery of them, nor are we attacking them, but we're giving sincere advice from our perspective. And I've also said that I do not give anybody permission to take part of this talk, and just this particular, on the 4 parts on Lut alayhi salam, to take any part of it and cut it out and to put it out on any form of social media or anywhere. I don't give permission for that. And we are a group of people who hold the right to have our views until the Day of Judgment, and this is purely from the religious point of view. And if there are people outside there who practice what they practice, they do that. And the reason why we've said traditional Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah and those who are the Sahaba consensus is that if there are Muslims who believe that they have the right to be gays and right to be lesbians and right to be bisexuals or whatever, then according to us, we've made it very clear that according to our beliefs, which is the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, if they see that as a halal act to perform, then they are out of the fold of Islam and they are not of us. And if they see it as a haram act, they believe it's a haram act and they do it, then they are sinful Muslims, but we still regard them to be Muslims. So we made all of this clear. And last week we came to this section about about Surah Hud, Surah number 11, ayah number 78. We were on there. In the middle of that, I had to cut off because the time ran out. So I want to say one more thing before we carry on. Last week I said that there's a difference between somebody's woman and somebody's other half. Now Allah Azza wa Jal makes a difference between the two in the Holy Quran, and based upon whether your spouse is somebody who has either given birth and also is somebody who has iman and belief. If those are fulfilled, then Allah calls them the other half. But where one is missing, Allah Azza wa Jal says it's the woman of that individual, meaning that it's a wife but not necessarily the other half. Now after saying that, some brothers had a word with me and they said, look, what about if there's a sister who hasn't been able to give birth? And I think the uneasiness of this whole theory is that what will happen to them in the next world? Will they be with their spouse or not? The thing is, look, if you're married to a man on this earth, then inshallah you will be with them in Jannah. Not that you probably want to be with them, but anyway, you'll be with them inshallah in Jannah, and Allah will remove all the things that you've got in your heart about your husband, your husband's heart about you, or whatever else. So that's fine, whether you've had children with them or not. So that is something that is guaranteed because of marriage. Now the other side to it, which is the whole thing I said about the entire, because Islam looks at 2 halves coming together or a whole being created on many different fronts, and I went through that last week. So that still remains, and Allah Azza wa Jal has given us the right to marry for this reason, that we're not just getting married for sexual intercourse. That's not what marriage is about, and that's very clear in Islam, that we're getting married because we're protecting the womb. Allah says arham, He uses the word wombs in the beginning of the verses of Surah An-Nisa, which means that a very sacred part of marriage is to fear Allah regarding the wombs of women, because in Islam, Islam is here to protect primarily a few things, and one of those things that Islam is here to protect is the nasab or the nasal of a person, which is your lineage. So what Islam does not want, and when I say Islam, I mean again the traditional sense of what the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajmain agreed on by consensus, is that Islam wants to save any illegitimate child from coming and being born on the earth. It wants to save that, because once an illegitimate child gets born, there are many other problems that get created from that. Many problems. And these are not just because Islam said it. I did an MA in educational psychology, and we studied the cause and effect of children not performing in school. And when we looked at some of the reasons, one of the reasons was because either it was, an illegitimate child, or it was because the child was born and there's no real biological link with the mother or father, or it was because there's a single parent family and the child is growing up with one parent only. And studies still have to emerge. See, there's been no long-term study on lesbians and then bringing a child up, on gays and then bringing a child up. There's been no long-term study in that, but I'm sure the studies are on the way. But I want to warn you as well, there are going to be scientists who are going to fake certain studies, just like it's happened with pharmaceutical companies. Just like pharmaceutical companies, you look into that, you will find that there's always bias in there. And what they do is they'll come with a bunch of lies. The scientists will get, certain scientists will get paid to say a certain amount of lies, to do research according to fake results and so on, or to manipulate the results and so on and so forth. And that's how these tobacco companies have got away with 100 years of selling tobacco to us, and companies that are creating artificial milk and so on, and all these other things that have happened, just to sell their drugs and things to us. They need to get the backing of these scientists, and they have the power and the money to pay these. Now, pharmaceutical companies are so large, and they've got so much clout in the world that they actually influence governments. And if you really want to study this, go into it and find out. So, like, just a quick thing, right now, whether you've got the drugs that are given to the tablets, let's call them tablets or pills, but they're really drugs, many of them, right? They're called halal drugs, yeah? That if a doctor gives it to you, it's halal. If you take it from the counter, you might be in trouble there. So what happens here, right, is that what is best for the body? I mean, if you look at it, there's Chinese medicine, there's herbal medicine, there's acupuncture, there's natural medicine. There's people who know from, you go to the depths of Africa, you go depths of India, you will find certain ways of trying to find medicine that is not conventional in the Western world. When you come to the Western world, all of this is banned. They don't want to talk about other methods. And little weight is given to any other form except for what the pharmaceutical companies have set up. So all your doctors and all your GPs across the whole of the UK and so on, and it's the same thing in America and so on, and Canada, is that they are told to only give you advice from certain books and certain things. You go for a second advice with the doctor's hat on, GP hat on, they cannot give you the advice. Even if you say, look, there's other people that have benefited from this other tablet, what they'll say to you is, they'll say to you that, we haven't tested that out, 50 years need to be taken to test this drug out. What do you mean 50 years? You and your granddad together haven't been sitting here for 50 years, right? They haven't tested half these drugs for 50 years. The only one that's been tested for 50 years is paracetamol. Nothing more than that has been tested for 50 years. But, they can sell a drug if it's tested for 4 years. They can sell it, but when you bring one from outside, they'll say they need 50 years for it. And this is what I've been personally told, because I went to the GP 12 years ago for something serious in my body, and you get a second opinion, and they don't want to take it. They don't want to talk about it. It's like taboo. Don't even come to us with it. And I took the other thing, medication, and it, alhamdulillah, with the bounty of Allah, it worked. And their one was like they were going to strap me and fuse my bones, and I don't know what they were going to do to me. And I looked into this, and I found that, they're all tied. Pharmaceutical companies are tied, so it's all a bunch of lies that have been told. So what I want to say to you is that when they do this research on gays bringing up children and lesbians bringing up children, I am sure from an argument of induction that just as there's been many lies in the past about so many other things we've been told, and there's truths as well, don't get me wrong, there's many good things that have happened, many good doctors out there, many good scientists out there. I'm not saying that they're all bad and corrupted. But on this side, you've got to worry about these studies. What's genuine, what's not genuine, what's been manipulated, what hasn't been manipulated, right? This whole thing about you're born, a gay and you're born a lesbian. And I've been through this in the other part of the series, and there's many doctors that are challenging this and their voices get unheard of. And at the end of this, I'm going to try and summarize what is happening in the larger picture of what's going on. So anyway, just to answer that thing that the brother said to me at the end of last week, which is, leave that to Allah Azza wa Jalla, what He does with wives and so on in the next world. But in this world, we as Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we as people who belong to the thought of and the aqidah of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in and what they subscribe to, we people believe that, we come into marriage because of many things, and one of those things is that we like to keep the womb sacred. And on that point I was saying to you that Allah Azza wa Jalla has sent this religion to try and save the human race from having illegitimate births. And that's why in Islam it's seen as something which is very, very wrong to do, where you have illegitimate intercourse, where you have unwanted babies, where you might be even the fact that you sleep with a woman out of marriage, it's a serious offense in Islam. Why it's a serious offense is because of many things that go wrong. Many things that go wrong. Okay? You think about it, marriage is what? Marriage is, I get together with this woman, we exchange vows. Once we've exchanged the vows, we are locked. We're locked in this relationship. Why does Allah say lock yourself in this relationship? Allah says in the Holy Quran, wal muhsanat. This is like entering a castle, a fortress that's guarding one another. Why does Allah say that? It's because now when my wife, she's got problems, I have to deal with it, as in a good way. I have to help her. When I've got problems, she has to deal with it. We're together. It's not like, okay, I had problems with you, don't like you anymore, get out of my house. You just had sexual intercourse with this woman. She's probably pregnant, or she might be pregnant. You had a free time with this woman and you just want to get rid of her. What about the psychological implications on this woman? What about the implications of this woman and her emotional needs and all that? What about that? You're just going to just dump her? That's why Islam doesn't allow it. And there are hundreds and thousands of cases across the West where this is happening on a daily basis, and it's happening on a weekly and a monthly basis. But it's like, so what? The guy just had a desire. I mean, this thing that then you had a desire. You just had a desire, and the desire just went, and it depends on your desire. So it's really bizarre. It's like, we know this happens. There are men out there. We're talking about men who don't want to go through the legal side. Men out there, they meet a woman, and the woman really fancies him. He fancies her. And I'm talking about heterosexuals. I'm not even talking about homosexuals. I'm talking about heterosexuals. So he sees a woman, she sees him, they both fancy each other, they go off, enjoying themselves, and then, she's happy, he's happy, they get to bed and so on, she's happy, he's happy, they make love with one another, and after that, after a while, she's got some beef to take with him, yeah? So she says, she goes to the police station, she says, that guy raped me. Whoa! Okay, he raped you. Okay, let's find out. Now it's been several days since they've had sex. There's no way to find out whether the semen is inside there, whether it was a forced entry, no forced entry. She says, look, she says, again, look, there are cases that are genuine where a woman might have been raped. So again, I don't want the activists for rape to try and crucify me. Right? There are genuine cases where women get raped, but I'm just looking at a particular one where he's gone off with her. It was consensual at the time. And then they end up in the court. And what's the court going to do? The court's going to have to go with her word and with his word. That's it. He says she was all happy, came home, everything, to that flat or whatever it was, we were all happy. She says, yeah, but I didn't want it. Well, how come you don't want it? But I was telling him not to, and he just, did it and whatever. Hang on a minute. How is a judge supposed to find out what was inside you and your heart and this man and his heart? Yeah. Now this opens up a great area of debate, which is, if you're going to get together with any woman, any man and anyone and do what you like, and it's all based on this consensual factor, Right? It's very dangerous game, because anybody can turn around any time and say they've been raped. Right? I'm just surprised some of these men are not saying, my wife raped me. I'm surprised, man. Hey guys, man, you're late, man. You're late to the show. But again, I'm not, look, there are genuine women there who've been raped, and I feel sorry for them, and I sympathize with them, and I will do everything to get them justice. That's fine. Again, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about where there was consensual from one party and the other party, and both of them were okay. And now, you hear every other week, that footballer that's going now through the court right now. Before that, there's some other guy. Every other week you're getting someone going through the courts, big fees and all that. What about whether it was consensual or not? And the jury is supposed to sit there and say, if I was in that night and I was watching them too, do I think it was consensual? How are you supposed to find out? You got nothing. You just got words. That's why Islam said no relationship except marriage. It's got nothing to do with, consensual, not consensual. No, it's marriage. That's the thing that allows you to get sexual with a person. And then again, Allah has said it has to be man to woman. And the reason why is because I've said, 3 weeks of stuff, so I'm not going to get into all of that. The reasons why are all in the 3 weeks. But I'm going to, inshallah, finish off Lut alayhi salam's story, inshallah. So, ayah number 78 of surah number 11, وَجَاءَهُ قَوْمُهُ يُهْرَعُونَ إِلَيْهِ. They came rushing towards the house of Lut alayhi salam. These are the city people who came rushing towards it because they knew that there's some young, handsome looking men. So then Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, وَمِن قَبْلُ كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ السَّيِّئَاتِ. Before this, they were doing evil acts. Now, they were doing evil acts. What does that mean? That means that this Lut alayhi salam in his house is watching, and he sees that all these men, hungry men, have come outside of his house, and they're banging on the door, they're looking through the windows. And in the Middle Eastern countries, you don't actually have like covered windows, whatever. Back in our homes, you just have like windows that you can just see through. So they're all basically, saying all the dirty things that they could say, and the whistling, and like chanting, and saying that give us a peace or whatever. We allow us to get closer to these men. Now, based on the law of induction, Lut alayhi salam knew exactly what they wanted. How does he know that they wanted these men and to basically have sexual intercourse with them? It was because of وَمِن قَبْلُ كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ سَيِّئَاتٍ, that prior to this, they were performing evil acts. And based upon that, he said to them, Ya qawm, O my people, هَؤُلَاءِ بَنَاتِ, these are my daughters. Hunna atharu lakum, they are more pure for you. Fattaqullah, so fear Allah. Wala tukhzuni fi tayfi, and don't disgrace me regarding my guests that are here. Alaysa minkum rajulun rashid, isn't there a man amongst you who is thinking and who is guided on the straight? Meaning that on the straight path, somebody who is balanced, somebody who is still got his original fitra or original, makeup of how Allah has made them from the inside. Isn't there a man here that can think properly that what you're doing? Because you're not only today, it's not only going to be that they slept or they had intercourse with a few men. It's going to be something serious where the city of Sodom will be known for a few guests that came there, and these men harassed them and had sexual intercourse with them, and therefore the whole of this prophet of Allah Azza wa Jal, Lut alayhi salam, is going to be known across the whole dynasty, across the whole of this sort of area. People will start talking about it. What, in a prophet's house, a man who claims to be a prophet, what, he had guests and they managed to do this. So he was like, at any cost he didn't want to allow it. And that's why he said, these are my daughters, I will offer them for marriage. Now, either he offered his own daughters, or most Mufassirin say it wasn't his daughters, it was the daughters of the Ummah, as in the people, the women of Sodom. Those women they become naturally the daughters of a prophet. Why? Because a prophet is like a father. A prophet is like a father to his nation. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was like a father to the whole of this ummah. And by relation to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, the people in Makkah, the people in Medina and so on can be seen as his sons and daughters because he's like a fatherly figure. Okay? So in that respect, Lut alayhi salam, according to a lot of mufassirin, when he said these are my daughters, he's talking about the women in this society, they're like my daughters. Why don't you marry them with a, you know, and have sexual intercourse with them if it's sex that you want? Now, this is the key thing. If you're after sexual intercourse and that's what you want, then what is the purpose of having sexual intercourse? And it ties in slightly with what I said before in one of the series, but I'm going to give a little different angle to it. If because of sexual intercourse you want to enjoy yourself and you want to have children from it, then the only place where you can go is a woman. You can only get children from a woman. You cannot get children other than a woman's womb. Okay? But if there is an individual who only wants to enjoy himself or herself with sex, so now it's become enjoyment, this is a real big danger. And that's why Allah in Islam, Allah has said sex with a woman in her vagina and that's it. Why has Allah said that? Why has Allah made our deen like that? Because there is no limit to what you can do when you want to enjoy sex. And we can see that around us today. So first, if a man was to have sex with the behind of a woman, if he was to then have sex with toys, there are toys out there people have sex with, right? There are, you know, then if a person then says, well, I've had all of that, they go to animals. There's animal sex across the world, and we don't like to talk about it. It's not only some non-Muslim countries that are affected by it. There are Muslim countries, unfortunately, who are not true good Muslims, but they in their countries, it's not widespread and it's not something in the open, but it disclosed. It is going on, and let us not deny that. So it's not a problem of a non-Muslim community. It's a problem, a human problem. Once you transgress that one law of Allah, which is you're going to now have sex outside of a woman's vagina, then there's no limit to what you can do. There's no limit. And that's why we've got the problem of pedophiles. Because then it's like, okay, sex with children, sex with youngsters, sex with these, sex with those, incest, as I mentioned before. There's no limit to what a person cannot do. You know, sex with a neighbor's wife and sex with, whoever they can get hold of, sex in front of, or, a person masturbating in front of the TV and in front of the internet, and a person just, doing what they like. There's no limit. And if the human race doesn't see that there's danger with this, that these are human beings living amongst us, and all they want is they want pleasure from their organ, they will find anything to give them that. Whether it's through, things that people agree or things that people find horrendous and horrible, they will just go for it. And that's not the kind of society we're living in. Today in Britain, it is a horrible, in some ways, it's a horrible time to be in, because there's slavery going on. Thousands of people are enslaved at this time in prostitution. This is in the UK, in America. And there are thousands of people who've been forced into sex. They've been brought from other countries. And this is just this country. You can imagine what's happening in the other countries. And why has that happened? Well, there's a great reason. Because once you open that, thing and say, you know what? As long as you're happy, have sex how you like. They'll do everything. They'll do anything to try and get themselves. And you know what happens with the human mind? Is that if you then go, like normally what's supposed to happen? What did our Prophet ﷺ do? Well, our Prophet ﷺ in the whole of his sunnah, he had intercourse with his wives, and he was in closed, boundaries, and he always had a blanket over himself and his wife, and that was it. Him and his wives, that was it. So he's always with the blanket on top. Even when he went to bathe, he bathed with partial clothes on, covering his organs. And when Aisha radiallahu anha, his wife, beloved wife, our mother, she was with him, she bathed with him from the same container according to hadith, but she was covered and he was covered. Even at that time they didn't uncover themselves to one another. Now when you try and keep it to that, you know what happens? Every time, and if it's always under a blanket, meaning that you're not looking at the other person's organ, then what happens is the person carries on enjoying it. Every time they go there, closed doors, lights off, whatever, blankets on top, you're doing it, it's like, that's it. You enjoy it because you're not looking at those parts. But you look at studies about men who have explored every inch of their spouses downstairs and upstairs. They've looked at everything. They've looked at it with the closest, binoculars they could, right? And they've seen everything there is. They're disgusted by it. Soon they've got no enjoyment towards it. And these are real studies. And then what they want to do is, after that is, they want to look for something that gives them the pleasure. Because if you lose your interest in a woman and your own wife, what do? You look for enjoyment somewhere else. And you will try and get it wherever you can get it, you'll get it. Which means, then you turn to other women. You will turn to other women. And if you can't get other women, then you turn to any other means, which is masturbation and other means. Now, again, a thing I want to say is, with what I said earlier, a couple of weeks ago, I said to you that there's a rough side to, the male organ, the front organ has been made in a way that it's supposed to get in contact with a vagina that allows liquid to be pushed forth, and because of that it becomes something that is delicate for them to enjoy their intimate relationship. But the behind of a man or a woman does not give out any liquid. It does not bring out any other liquids, and that's why it's a hard surface. What it does is, it makes a male's organ, meaning his penis, he does not enjoy it to sleep with a woman from her front again, because he has less enjoyment. Why? Because now his organ is used to having a rough surface around it. The same happens if a man was to masturbate. If a man masturbates, then because of his hand being something that is hard and a much rougher surface than a woman's vagina, this does, it makes him over time want to always have rough surfaces around there. And one of my ustads, one of Fadl Rahim, he said, if men, especially young boys, if they masturbate and they get used to that, what happens is they're not realizing that when a person is releasing semen from the body, there's different amounts of semen that get released, depending on what type of way they've made themselves release that semen. So, if they were to sleep with a woman, this is the best way for that man to release just enough semen, which is there's a soft tissue, a lot of the sort of soft liquid and so on that comes out from her vagina, and they sort of become intimate, and it becomes easy for him to enjoy that on that level. Then when he finally releases his semen, it will be a certain amount. But if he was to release it because of masturbation, because there's a harder surface, there's more semen that gets released. And if he was to release it because he is having anal sex, there's more semen that is released than having sex with a vagina. And what that does is, it starts to drain out the system. And then what happens is, there are men who lose their erection very quickly when they want to carry on a long-term relationship with their wife. So either because they've been masturbating for a long time, or because they've been having anal sex. Both of these things over a period of time is going to kill off their sex drive. So there comes to a certain point when they want to have sex, and what happens is, look, because they got used to the rough surface, either their hand or it was because of anal sex. Because they used to rough surface, they go to a woman, and the penis becomes so sensitive that they touch the woman's thighs with their penis, or they touch her vagina, whatever it is, and it gets so much aroused that it just lets out all the semen out. So it's like, she's like, boom, is that it? You finished? Sorry, next time, whatever, yeah? And there are women out there who are complaining. There are women out there who are complaining that they don't actually get a climax with their husband, and sometimes he inserts it in, but just a bit of insert, and he's already ready to release it. Why? Because his penis has become so sensitive. And after a while, after 20 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, he's probably reached his mid-30s or mid-40s. My teacher, Mawlana Fadl Rahim Sahib said, he said, these men, what will happen is that they won't be able to have sex anymore. Because there's no more energy. Guy, listen, you've got an organ, yeah? It's got a limited amount of days you can use it. It's got a sell by date, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you use it normally, alhamdulillah, last till your 70s, 80s, you'll be there with your false teeth and still carrying on, mashallah, alright? But you misuse it, you'll finish it off by the time you're in your 40s or your 50s or your 60s or whatever, or even before that, way before that, you'll finish it off if you go through the other means. Now again, they're not going to tell you all of this. They're not going to tell you all of this.